Welcome to the Real Estate Pros Show, where we interview real estate investing professionals from coast to coast, as well as the service providers that serve the real estate investing industry. Our goal is simple: share what's working now to help you improve and scale your business to the next level and meet the pros that can help you get there. Real Estate Pros is powered by Investor Fuel, America's leader in helping real estate investors and professionals build the business you need to live the life you've always dreamed of. Let's start today's show. Property insurance for real estate investors doesn't have to be difficult, but it does need to be there to protect you when you need it. MyInvestorInsurance.com not only provides insurance at 15 to 30% cheaper than traditional agencies, it's built specifically for real estate investors like you. You can set up an account in about 2 minutes, get quotes on properties, turn on and turn off insurance for your fix and flip or rental properties in around 2 minutes without having to talk to anyone directly, all through our portal. There's no better way or faster way to make sure you've got the coverage you need to protect you, and no more lengthy policies either. Once you're set up, you're billed monthly and prorated by the day for however long your policy is active. It's powered by MSI, the third largest independent MGA, with 1.5 million customers and more than $1 billion in cumulative premiums written. Get set up today in about 2 minutes at myinvestorinsurance.com/fuel.
Welcome to the show, where we interview the nation's leading real estate entrepreneurs. I got a surprise in the studio for you guys today, and I'm going to spoil you a little bit. I've got an absolute real estate legend in the house who is a second generation of the Embry companies, which is a company that's been in business since the mid-90s. They're in their 75th year of business, and I got a special treat with Mike Embry in the house here. We're going to be talking about the evolving market trends and development, how they're playing in the data center space, and how they research and analyze their deals to make sure that they're all making money. So we're going to go ahead and get into it, but before we do, just remember, at Investor Fuel, we help real estate investors, service providers, and real estate entrepreneurs 2 to 5x their businesses so they can build the businesses they've always wanted in order to live the lives they've always dreamed of. With that being said, Mike, welcome to the show today. Pleasure to have you.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Stephen. Glad to be here. Look forward to it.
You bet. So you got your second generation. You got into the business when you were 23 back in 85 with a killer mustache and a whole head of hair at that point, as you said in our pre-show call. Was this kind of destined for you, or what made you decide to take hold of the horns and work in the family business back then?
Growing up in it, I was the youngest of 3 sons on my dad's part. There was 3 brothers that started the business, but I came along, so I've always been around it, and I've always loved it. I mean, watching them develop and build and move through the real estate business, it was just a lot of fun to be around as a kid. And the only other thing that I probably love more than real estate is motorcycles, and you can't make any money with motorcycles. So, but I do love real estate. It's a lot of fun, and it doesn't always love you back, but being around it, I just kind of got the bug, and always wanted to be like my dad.
You bet. So what was your early on role coming into an already established business at that point? I mean, you guys had already been in business, almost 35 years at that stage. What were you doing at first?
Coming through as a kid, they brought us all along, starting out sweeping houses or landscaping yards if they were building houses, or painting. They owned apartments, a lot of rental property. So we came along working, from the ground up, as all 3 of the brothers grew up on a farm sharecropping, and they grew up with nothing. They 2-room farmhouse, no power, no water, and an outhouse. And they really felt that you needed to know what it was like to work, and I never had a problem with that. I always loved working outdoors, and grew up on a farm myself. We had a cattle farm, but they always felt that you should know from the very bottom up to the top how the business works. And so if you didn't want to do that, then they would pay for you to get a real good education, and you could go work doing something else. So
You bet. So did you see the long-term vision of secession when you were that young? Was that something that excited you about getting into it?
Stop living on an island and join the #1 mastermind in America for professional real estate investors. Investor Fuel is a community of hundreds of the nation's top investors working together to build stronger businesses and better lives. In addition to the amazing community of real estate investors acting as a board of advisors for one another, Investor Fuel members have access to 100% funding on purchase and repairs for our members only, a health insurance program, and benefits and discounts that more than pays for the membership of most of our members, meaning it's actually costing you money to not be a member of Investor Fuel. If you're looking to scale your business and build a business that allows you to live the life of your dreams, please visit investorfuel.com today and book a call with our team.
Yeah, they did real well. But there's always the things you find out as you get older. It didn't, we always thought it was easy, that, they were just always on a roll. The real estate business, they seem to be on top of it. And that's not the thing once you get older and you get in it, that, the hard times that they went through where, they had run out of capital or the market turned down and they were, scratching to survive. It just, we never saw it when we were really young, but as we got older, and especially as they got out of the business and we were the only ones left in the business, you start getting those battle scars that you didn't know that they had got. Let's put it that way.
Right. Yeah, those scars where they've been there and bought the T-shirt for it, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. There was a lot of knife fights that we didn't know about. That when you're young, you don't see that. When your parents do a lot of things you don't know when you're a kid that they did to survive and keep the things that they need to do for you.
Right. Yeah, that's something I'm even trying to instill in my own kids now. I have this fear of where our world's heading for our next generations, and I've got a 10-year-old son who I'm trying to teach the values of hard work and not complaining about the things that you have to go through. And it's like, I'm hoping this isn't all for nothing, that he's going to be one of the people leading the world someday. But it's also just a scary thing to think that there's a potential reality. He's going to be selling fake moccasins in a virtual reality world to somebody else's kid. You know what I mean? But at least I can do my best to instill some of those principles of the hard work. And hopefully I've built something at that point to be able to have him also start working in. And that's going to be the same thing. He'll be cleaning the toilets and sweeping the floors and doing the landscaping. That's for sure.
Well, I don't think you can start them young enough doing that. My daughter did research for me. I'm coming up through middle and high school before she went to college. My son worked when we had a construction company with my brother in the summers, sweeping houses and carrying lumber and doing whatever needed to be done. So, and you don't always like it when you're younger, but when you look back on it, you realize there's a reason there for it. And it's that work ethic that, I've always felt, I wasn't the smartest guy, but no one was ever going to outwork me. I always told people that I will outwork anybody there is. And, hopefully that pays off.
You bet. Love that. So let me ask you this, because this is something I have one of my favorite questions to ask, but I don't always get to ask it to everyone, just because not everybody has been in the business for a very, very, very long time. But what's something that you believed about the real estate space when you started that you no longer believe 40 years post?
That I believe or that I think is drastically different? I just want to make sure I answer it correctly.
Let's go with that. I like that better.
Well, when I started out, I could take a project, I could put a piece of property under contract and do a design, take it through zoning, get it permitted in less than a year. And I've got projects now where I'm in year 4 or 5 and I don't have my permits.
Wow.
So the drastic amount of red tape that it takes and what goes along, the municipalities are not like businesses, so they don't gear up, they don't hire more people like a private company does. But also out here, the shortage of engineers there's not a lot of kids that go to engineering school and come out. So you've got private equities buying up engineering firms so they can buy the talent. How like, out in Silicon Valley where they'll buy a tech company to get the talent. It's the same thing going on with engineering, and it's creating this huge void where if you're not a bigger company or you don't know an engineer, it just takes weeks or months to get your work done, and it just puts you behind. But that's probably the biggest thing is the timeline now, and the dealing with the municipalities, the time to get zoned, to get permitted. The zoning's become a disaster. I mean, we had one about 5 or 6 weeks ago, a couple of hundred people there, flipping out. Most of them didn't even know why they were mad at us for what we were doing.
If you're looking for consistent, high-quality leads, look no further than Investor Machine. Investor Machine isn't just another agency. It's the most sophisticated, data-driven lead generation company on the planet for real estate investors, and serves the role of being not just a lead generator for your business, but a marketing partner that is helping you achieve your goals along the way. Go to investormachine.com to learn more and schedule a call with our team today.
That's the one thing, the difference. I'd say the biggest is the internet, because, I can Google that Stephen Schmidt, does he hate data centers? And there's probably something with AI that'll say Stephen Schmidt said that he hated a data center, 11 months ago. I mean, that's one of the problems that we run into with projects is that people Google stuff, or they're just not informed in this time where you can find out a lot of things and have platforms like this. And we try really hard to either meet in person, have Teams meetings, whatever it is, talk with people on the phone to keep them informed. And that's probably been one of our better things as far as entitlement is zoning and design, where we can get projects done that a lot of times other companies can't.
Sure. Now, so like with the data centers, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was going to pivot towards that here shortly anyway. So with the data centers, I know you guys did your first project, realized there was, something to be had in that specific niche, but how did you exactly land on that specific strategy of going after those builds and development? And maybe for those of us that might not know what that is, what exactly is a data center? How does a deal like that even get put into place?
Well, they've been around for probably 20 years and just haven't been at the forefront of real estate because there wasn't that much data to store. Most of it was government data or health industry, that type of thing. But now everything is stored on in a data center. What we're here right now, when you put it out there for it to go to YouTube or on your website, it'll be stored in a data center. Everything on your phone, your app TV, everywhere you shop where you're getting your points, everything is stored at a data center. But with AI has made the jump dramatic, and it started a couple of years ago. And you've only got areas in the country that have enough power or water or fiber to handle it. And Georgia is one of those areas right now. They're just about ready to lead the nation. The Southern Company provides a lot of power here, but Virginia was the epicenter, and then it was Arizona. Texas has jumped in there, but how we ended up getting involved directly in it, as you asked, was we bought a pretty large mixed-use project about 2.5 years ago out of bankruptcy, and it was 300 multifamily units, 320 senior living units, 100,000 feet of commercial retail, 250 single family, and it was already permitted. So we had planned on just going through and doing our mixed use project like we had bought, and we were approached by a data center, an end user, and we started walking through it, and just the dynamics of it and the pricing, of course, really swayed us that we needed to take a really hard look. And from that point, once we started that one, we're now involved in 6 data centers. So within a matter of 18 months, we've gone from doing 0 to 6. Yeah, I mean, after, there was about a 20-year span where data centers, there wasn't a lot that was being stored. It was government info, health records, that type of thing. And then as everything became your phones, computer, everything, I mean, everything exploded out, TVs, the storage had to increase dramatically. And then AI has just pushed it to another level. In fact, you're talking about where in a regular data center they would have servers they could swap out in 5 years. Now it's 2 to 3 years because AI, the demand is just crazy. But what happened with us about a year and a half ago, we had bought a project out of bankruptcy that was 300 apartment units, 320 senior living, 250 single family houses, and 100,000 feet of commercial retail that
If you're a new or newer real estate investor looking to launch or grow your real estate investing business, please check out Investor Fuel Club. It's a coaching community, but unlike anything you've ever seen before. And you can actually partner with members of our mastermind from coast to coast on deals right in your market. There's no better opportunity to build a consistent business than to literally partner with pros to help you avoid costly mistakes, avoid the need for capital to do deals, and help you eliminate your fears as you're starting your business. Learn more about Investor Fuel Club at investorfuel.com/club.
it was permitted and we were ready to go through 7 or 8 year deal. We were going to stay in it. We were approached by an end user about a data center campus there. And once we looked at the dynamics and the numbers and everything else, it was just like, this is it was very eye-opening for someone who'd never been in that space. Not that we were ignoring it, but the numbers and our timeline of being able to get out in a couple of years as compared to 8 years and make a lot more money at it, very inviting. So we looked through our portfolio of, we've got about 100 million in assets, either that we own or under contract. And we went and analyzed every one of them. Okay, will this meet the criteria? And we had 5 at the time that met the criteria where we could either do a small center to sell to someone private, or larger ones like we were doing that involve, Meta or Oracle, or, there's a number of end users, hyperscalers, that type of thing, that actually develop these campuses for a number of companies. So that's what kind of drove us there, as we analyzed, okay, we had one we're looking at right now, 355 single family units. It was a defunct golf course in South Carolina. And it turns out we can do a data center on it and possibly a regeneration site, which is where the power company will upgrade the power lines, and then they'll dump a bunch of power in this building overnight and store it for the peak hours during the day. And it's, they're very lucrative. You don't have the hypersensitivity of, let's say, putting in a multifamily site or something. You're not putting kids in the schools. You're not putting a bunch of traffic on the roads. The tax base. I mean, we've got one now that's a 300 lot residential deal, and over a 7 year period, it would put $16 million worth of property taxes into that county. With a data center with 1,200,000 square feet on it of buildings, it'll put $93 million in property taxes into it in 7 years. So it's crazy when you start looking at the numbers and compare them to other types of real estate.
Sure. Now, were you guys approached for your first development, or when did you decide, like, hey, this is something we should pursue, and then see how the first one went? How did that kind of come about?
We were approached. We were moving forward with our project the way that it had been designed and permitted. And they were knocking on the door. We weren't real interested at first. It's like, look, we got a game plan. We're there. We're ready to break ground. And they kept on talking to us. And as we peeled back the layers and looked at it, and it's like, well, wow, I can be out in a quarter of the time and make 4 times as much money. I mean, I don't have to be hitting the head with a hammer to figure that one out. So, much as
Yeah,
I'd like
no
to
kidding.
think I'm smart sometimes, a lot of times it just kind of goes your way. I mean, this business, it can go both ways. It can kick your butt and make you feel like you never want to do it again. And then there's times that you feel like you've done everything right. And a lot of times it's just right place at the right time.
Sure. Now, so I know research and analyzing the deals is a big thing that you focused on, something that you cut your teeth on very early, and finding some challenges and possibly even making some mistakes. But how do you decide which opportunities are actually worth pursuing at the end of the day now?
Well, a good example is like when this came with data centers, and then we started looking at other projects and saying, okay, what we were never involved in this space. And now we have to go back from the beginning and look at it like it's a blank piece of paper and do our research and see, is there something there? But each project, if we decide an area that we want to be in, if it's a residential deal, it usually starts with public schools. That's usually the number
Mm,
one driver for from years ago when I was young, is that if you're going to do a residential deal, the first thing you're going to look at is the public school system, and then you're going to be
mm,
looking at jobs. And um, you know, it's not that difficult. It's just a matter of peeling back the layers, and it's a little easier now because you've got people that collect data, and you can subscribe. And 100 years ago when I got started, we had plat books that you had to go down to the county to look for a parcel. And we thought we were high tech when we started buying our own plat books and not having to go down to the deed room. So, um,
yeah.
but then you had every year the school system put out scores, and you'd go buy those, and you'd have that. And it's you've got a lot more information now, but you still have to filter it. Some of it's just a gut call. I mean, we've made a lot of calls where we went back into redeveloping in Atlanta 30 plus years ago, and a lot of
Mm,
people didn't want to go in there. And it was, as I was told, pioneers end up with arrows in their back. And we were in some pretty sketchy areas, but you, as low tech as I can put it, I'd sit there and drink a cup of coffee and watch what kind of cars were coming by and who was going in and, you know, stopping in stores and getting something, and where did they come from. I mean, to me, it wasn't that difficult to read it, but it was hard to
mm,
get a lot of people to sometimes want to do a project with you or get financing for it, honestly. But
yeah.
we spent a lot of time using private money for a number of years.
Mm. So, I mean, on that note, that brings up a good point that for your side of real estate, it's obviously, and I think most portions of real estate are the same, where it's really relationship driven. But to be in business as long as you guys have been in business and to be able to still continue to operate, you have to have had built some really long term relationships. What's your approach to building long term relationships in the business?
Um, I always tell people be real careful when you're talking to the new planner at the county or the young engineer or whoever it may be, because time moves on. Like we talked about earlier, I had a lot of hair and a mustache and a real good tan. And a lot of the people, as time goes on, the people move up and they become the person that's making the decisions. And you have to be really careful and checking how you treat people um, that aren't necessarily making decisions today, but in 10, 20 years, they'll be the shot caller. So you just got to be respectful to people, even if they're learning the business, whatever sector that is they're in, whether it's private or public, and just you know just be nice to people. It's pretty simple to me. If you're nice to people, people will want to work with. If you're going to yell at them
Mm,
and act like a jerk, and you know they don't want to work with you. And it's to me, it's that easy. That uh, you got to think long term. That people,
mm,
the guy I'm talking to today, is going to be 10 years from now, he's going to be running that department down at the city of Atlanta. And if I've been treating him bad, well, you can bet they remember the people that treat him bad as well as the ones that treat him good. So
Sure, 100%. What's maybe the best piece of advice you've ever received about leadership?
about leadership, don't ask anyone to do a job that you wouldn't do yourself or have already done it.
Mm. Who'd you get
I
that
mean,
from?
I've got that from my dad. Um, I mean, I've worked in the rain putting up silt fence. I've put pipe in the ground. I've put ductile iron pipe in the ground. Uh, you know, water lines. I say, you name it. I have worked in the field. I didn't just come up and, uh, as he used to say, you can't build houses from behind a desk. I didn't sit behind a
Yeah.
desk and do things. I worked in the field for many years. Enjoyed it. At times it got old when it's almost 100 degrees here in Georgia and you're putting pipe in the ground. You kind of want to go put the suit on and sit inside for a while. But I think that's the thing is don't tell people to go do something that you either don't know how to do or you haven't
Mm.
researched. Trying to be a leader and not know the job you're asking someone to do is tough.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with that for sure. Even more so than just in business. I know I mentioned earlier on the show about how I'm teaching my son now the value of hard work and that you're always going to have to do things that you don't want to do. And life might get easier the more you get educated and the better relationships you build and the higher net worth people you get around. But at the end of the day, right out of high school, I cut my teeth putting in, working on a bore drilling crew and putting in pipeline myself and working 100 hours a week. And it's one of those things that it's nice now because I get to sit in a fancy office and talk to real estate investors all day and have a great time. But at the same time, I would never be preaching about the value of hard work had I not been through it myself and realized that some of those lessons when it was 100 degrees out and I was sunburnt from head to toe for weeks at a time, that those were some of the most important lessons that I've actually ever received in my adult life too.
It the cliche makes you appreciate it, but I think it
Sure.
instills a work ethic, and it's one of those things that, like I said, when '08 hit, we were getting hammered like everybody else, and you know, I told people my dad grew up, like I said, 2-room farmhouse, no water, no power, had an outhouse, worked in the fields, and I said, I don't have it that bad. I can,
Mm.
I'm sitting at home, I'm eating dinner and I'm watching TV and got my phone and I'm working on stuff and you just got to keep things in perspective. And at that
Right.
time, my daughter also told me, she said, guys like you always come back, Dad, don't worry about it. So
Mm.
that, that was the advice from my, at the time would have been 12-year-old daughter. So,
What a profound thing for a 12-year-old to say.
and now she works in the business. So she's
There you go.
29 years and works in the business. And her and my son and my nephew, uh, they've they've seen how hard it can be. You can work on stuff for a long time, and then a deal just
Mm.
go away in a matter of hours.
Sure.
It can be tough, but I mean, I think that people in real estate business, you got to be thick-skinned. There's just a lot of facets to it, whether, whatever sector you like to work in, or whether you're dealing in the financial part of it, or whatever it is. It can be. I've always enjoyed it. So, but yeah,
There's
it'll.
there's an entrepreneur that I really respect who had a clip that I saw of him. He's into building steel buildings, has a pretty sizable company that he's built. And he talked about when he was earlier on and he was about to go through bankruptcy, he went to one of his mentors who is a pretty big deal in that space. And he told him, he's like, man, I've got $1 million out that I'm owed. I've already had to take out a second mortgage on my home just to make payroll. And I really think I'm going to go bankrupt. And his mentor slapped him on the shoulder and kind of smiled and just said, son, if you don't feel like you're going to be doing that every 4 years, then you probably ain't doing anything anyways. And you kind of strike me as the type of person that would say that to somebody going through that.
Well, I had a guy who I knew for years, older developer, and he looked at me one time and he said, I've gone through the booms and the busts. Real estate's kind of like the oil business. You make it, and then if you just mistime it, then you can lose it all. And he had done it 3 times, and he ended up on top. But he's like, you go back to work. Once he goes, when everything went bad, they'd clear the deck, and I'd go back to work. But he also used to joke. He'd say, "A real estate developer's worth what he can borrow." So that was his famous line. So
I love that.
of course, when
Let me ask you one last.
He owed about $250 million when 08 hit, so he was worth a lot.
Wow. No kidding, man. So let me ask you one last question. If you were able to go back to when you got started, but you were able to take all of the knowledge you've gained over the last 40 years back with you and do everything over again, what would you do differently, and what would you do the same?
Differently, I think I would probably, knowing where things are now, I would have learned more about the capital end of it. It starts out, you go to a bank, you have a deal, and you put it together. This is the profit I'm going to make. I mean, that's kind of old schoolish. And now, the way capital is, and where you got a return on the capital, and it's just stacked up differently. And I think the guys that you see that come out of private equity and stuff become good developers. They understand how the money works, I think, a little different. Instead of looking at how the project works, okay, I need $10 million. I'm going to go get $10 million, and this is how my project works. Instead of saying, I've got $10 million in capital, how am I going to put this into 1, 2, or 3 projects? I think that's one of the things I would have liked to have known differently. What I would have kept doing is, like I said, working hard. I mean, I like to work, always have, and like I said, I've always told people if I have to, I'll outwork them. I've worked on Christmas Day. I've worked all night long. I mean, I don't mind doing it, and I think that's the thing that you also have to in this business. I mean, I've been called on Thanksgiving Day when someone's hot water heaters exploded and the ceiling fell in while they were eating Thanksgiving in one of my apartments, and you're down there cleaning it up instead of sitting with your family. So, you got to be ready to do that type of stuff. You can call your maintenance guy on Thanksgiving, but if he's been working 2 weeks straight and hadn't had a day off, then, and you want him to keep working for you, then you just go down there and handle it. So,
You bet. Love that. Well, Mike, this has been an absolute pleasure and a privilege. How can these people connect with you for more if they want to learn more about you or what you're working on?
They can go to embrydevelopmentcorp.com. That's our new updated website, and it's got a history on us, projects we're working on, and they can contact me. I'll leave you information on. They can give me a call or email if they want to talk to me about projects. Either they got some for sale, want to buy something, invest, whatever it is, anything real estate, we're always game to talk to people.
I love it. Well, thanks so much for being here. I know everybody got a ton of value out of this as much as I did. And we appreciate you coming on and sharing your story and some nuggets of wisdom with us. We'll see everybody in the next episode.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate it very much.
You bet, Mike.
Thanks for joining us for today's Real Estate Pros Show. You can learn more about the amazing benefits of the Investor Fuel Mastermind community, including surrounding yourself with hundreds of other rock stars, 100% financing for your deals, and members-only discounts from vendors you're likely already using that, as a member of Investor Fuel, will save you more than the cost of your membership. Visit investorfuel.com to learn more. If you're interested in joining us as a guest of this show, please visit investorfuel.com/pros to apply. You can also check the show notes for access to free resources, how to get access to world-class lead generation, and much more. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another episode. Have a great day. We'll see you on the next show.